As Star Wars fans, we're all invested in characters of our choosing, whether that be Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, or any number of Star Wars heroes or villains. But some of us, it's the characters that are more on the sidelines, or plainly speaking, characters that don't seem to play much into the overall scheme of the Star Wars universe. Two of those characters are those of Boba Fett and his father, Jango Fett. I know I talk about them a lot on this channel. It's probably an unhealthy obsession, really. But, be that as it may, these characters mean so much more to the Star Wars than they are given credit for. I could go on and on about how Boba Fett was the catalyst for most of the events during and after The Empire Strikes Back in the original trilogy. Trust me, I have gone on and on about it. But that isn't what I'm doing today. Instead, I want to dig a little deeper into the microcosm of how Boba Fett is actually continuing his father's story and how it is becoming full circle. Even without knowing everything that's going to happen in the Book of Boba Fett, we have already seen this circle playing out right in front of us. I could go on and on about what if Boba Fett was never created as a character, and I may do that one day, but this isn't that story. This is more about Boba Fett already becoming his father's legacy, and if the story plays out like it should, the story of the two best bounty hunters in the Star Wars galaxy will end at the beginning of Jango Fett's journey. So maybe this is a what if video. We shall see when the Book of Boba Fett plays out. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel while you're here. Let's make this the biggest and best Star Wars YouTube channel around. If you make the commitment to making this the biggest, I will commit to being the best. You have my word. Also, check out my Patreon page. Now, let's continue. To say Jango Fett's entire story was that he was a great bounty hunter that became the clone template for the Grand Army of the Republic and stopping there is only half of his contribution to the stories playing out now in the Mandalorian series and those in development that tie into the Mandalorian and the lore of Mandalorians as a whole. As a basis, the creators at Lucasfilm could have left Boba Fett to be digested over 1,000 years in the belly of the Sarlacc, but they didn't. We could even call the survival of Boba Fett a fan service. But when it boils down to it, when you look at Star Wars fandom as a whole, how many people really wanted a return of the best bounty hunter in the galaxy when you look at what all Star Wars fans want? In other words, it seems like there's an interest for a Boba Fett continuity story, but it's nowhere near the interest for fresh content. The Mandalorian is proof of that. No, they didn't revive Boba Fett because of fan service entirely. They did it because they saw a bigger story that needed to be told, not just about Boba Fett, but Mandalorian lore as a whole. I mentioned that it's a disservice to believe Jango Fett's entire contribution to Star Wars was the use of his DNA to create an army and a cloned son that eventually tracked Han Solo. Maybe those contributions would have been enough had they not created the Mandalorian arcs in the Clone Wars series and the Mandalorian series itself. But here we are. And I believe Boba Fett's return all sparks from Prime Minister Almec's statement, Jango Fett is a common bounty hunter. How he retrieved that armor is beyond me. That statement prompted Dave Filoni to do an interview where he had to explain why Almec discredited Jango Fett. That interview has become highly controversial among Boba Fett, Jango Fett fans and haters. But if you didn't catch it in the Mandalorian series, we know Jango Fett to have been adopted into the Mandalorian culture by his mentor, Jaster Mereel. So that puts us at the starting point of the circle. Jango Fett sees his family killed on Concord Dawn. His father was a journeyman protector, a kind of sheriff. Jango is then found as an orphan by Jaster Mereel and his band of true Mandalorians, a group that was trying to reform Mandalore's warrior culture into something honorable. During this time, Jaster Mereel was the Mandalore, or leader of all Mandalorian clans. Jango was trained as a Mandalorian and fought alongside Jaster and the true Mandalorians against Death Watch during the Mandalorian Civil War. When Jango was a young adult, he watched as Jaster was killed. This was his second father figure he witnessed die. From that moment, and through the Civil War, Jango became the Mandalore. Jango helped end this civil war by being the direct cause of the Death Watch leader Tor Vizsla's own demise. Yes, the same Death Watch that Prime Minister Almec allied himself with during the Clone Wars. It's unclear as to why Jango left Mandalorian society, but he served as a slave for a couple of years beforehand, as a direct result of Jedi intervention. Maybe this experience left him jaded. Well, of course it did. After his escape from slavery, Jango set off on his own to become a bounty hunter, one of the professions seen as honorable to the true Mandalorian Reformation. Fast forward, Jango Fett is contracted to become the DNA template for the future army of the Republic. In his sizable payment, he requests an unaltered clone of himself. This clone becomes known as his son, Boba Fett. When Boba's around 10 years old, he witnesses his father slain by Jedi. The story circle has begun. Remember when I said Jango watched his family murdered? Jango was around 10 years old at that time as well. After this, young Boba Fett sets out on his own to start his own bounty hunting profession, following in his father's footsteps, right where he left off. The young Boba takes on mentors in the profession. He learns from them. He takes the best parts of their knowledge and throws away what's unnecessary. By the time he's an adult, he surpasses his mentors and becomes the best bounty hunter in the galaxy, just as his father had. Boba surely would have been taught his father's past, just as his father had become untrusting of Mandalorians following the Civil War, and Boba seems to have taken on that tradition as well. Or at least it would appear that way, as we never see him interact with Mandalorians. That is, until The Mandalorian Season 2. It isn't beyond him to team up with others to reach his own goals, then discard them afterwards. But his trust in others is non-existent. We do see a shift in that when he teams up with Din Djarin. The circle is now rounded. Jango Fett had put a lot of trust in his team of true Mandalorians during the Civil War. He had fought with them and watched them lay down their lives for the ideals Jaster Muriel had believed in. Those ideals became Jango's as well, and the true Mandalorians tried to help him realize those goals. The deal Boba Fett struck with Din Djarin was one of trust. He agreed to help Mando rescue the child Grogu in return for his armor. But at any time, he could have ended the deal by taking out Din Djarin when he wasn't paying attention. But this is where we see a shift in Boba Fett's code of honor. Instead of betraying him and ending their teamwork, he fulfills his end of the bargain, trusting a Mandalorian and putting his life on the line for that Mandalorian's goal. The last we see of Boba, he and his accomplice Fennec Shand take over Jabba the Hutt's palace, becoming the head of a crime syndicate. At least that's what we are being led to believe. How does this have anything to do with ending where Jango began? It doesn't exactly, but it's a step toward it. You see, Boba Fett is now a leader, not a leader of Mandalorians, but the story is rounding out nicely to put him in that position. He's a leader though. For those who think this is the end of his story, just think of everything we've seen Boba Fett do. Has he seemed like he wanted to be a leader of anything, or has he shown he's more of a loner? Becoming the head of a crime syndicate is a step in his evolution to becoming Jango's story, but it isn't in Boba Fett's character. The next step is to return to his father's roots and become the leader of a reformed Mandalorian culture, a uniter. Maybe not right away, and he may not even be willing to at first, but it may also take some convincing for him to become that leader. Do you see where I'm going with this? Okay, let's trace the circle. Jango Fett's story really began when he witnessed his parents killed, and he joined the true Mandalorians. He became well trained in his adopted culture and even led them. That is until he became a bounty hunter in exile, the best bounty hunter. Boba Fett then witnessed his father's death and picked up where Jango had left off, becoming the best bounty hunter. He then comes in contact with a Mandalorian and joins him for a mission that involves retrieving a Mandalorian foundling. Remember, Grogu is part of a clan of 2 Mandalorians, Clan Mudhorn. Boba then teams up with 2 other Mandalorians on this quest, unknowingly pulling more of his father's culture into his own reality. Now he is the leader of a crime syndicate and will have no choice but to reconcile his heritage by gaining help from Mandalorians, ultimately becoming a leader, the leader his father was to his own group of Mandalorians. The story then ends where it began, coming full circle. Now that's not saying Boba Fett's full story is going to end there, because he's going to need his own legacy to bring another circle around. I know a lot of people won't agree with this, but the Mandalorian culture and the events we have seen in the Clone Wars, Rebels, and The Mandalorian are a direct result of Jango Fett's own history in Mandalorian society. Had it not been for his victories in the Mandalorian Civil War, Death Watch would have never been in exile and allowing for Maul to slip in and take over, leading to other civil wars and a purge of Mandalore itself. Like I said before, they could have just left Boba Fett to rot in the Sarlacc, but there are bigger stories at play, and Boba Fett's story needs to complete Jango Fett's story for a complete Mandalorian story. That isn't fan service, that's a key character in Mandalorian lore being crucial to the completion of a story. I could be wrong with this, but I don't think I am. But if I am, I'm willing to accept that and accept the story we get. I'm not that guy that gets upset about my theories not working out and being replaced by a good story. I have made a lot of videos about Boba Fett and Jango Fett. I encourage you to check them out. I'll put links to some of them in the description at the end of this video. Let me know in the comments of what you think of my circle theory, or if you have your own. I'd like to see Jango and Boba rounded out like this. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a like unless you don't like it. Then I want you to give the old thumbs down to tell me to do a better job. Also, channel memberships are now live, and I've added a link to my Patreon in the banner on my homepage. Thank you for watching, and remember, this is the way, the only way.